Hey everybody, I hope that you're doing well, that you've had a good week. This week for our Children's Church Story Share, I'm going to be sharing a story with you guys, and I'm going to be sharing a story from the book God's Love is Like, and it's illustrated and written by Ray Buckley. I hope you enjoy. Let's get started. Okay, today we're going to be reading Jody Learns About Good Soil. Worms, red worms and brown worms, night crawlers and earthworms, shiny, slippery worms, and worms that were asleep. There must have been 1,000 worms. No, 1,000,000 worms. No, it must be 1,000,000,000 worms. Mr. Weaver started to laugh. Jody liked to see Mr. Weaver laugh. Mr. Weaver would roll his head back and laugh until he shook all over the place. Ha ha! No, Jody, Mr. Weaver laughed. Probably not that many, but a lot. You can never have enough worms, you know. Jody couldn't imagine needing worms. Mr. Weaver had a beautiful garden. There were flowers from Africa, China, all over, bright daisies and sunflowers. See the sunflowers there? As big as Jody. Everyone said it was because Mr. Weaver had a green thumb. Mr. Weaver said it was because he had wonderful dirt. To have wonderful dirt, he insisted, you need lots of worms. The job God gave worms was to keep dirt fresh and loose. Plants like worms, Mr. Weaver said and smiled. There's some of those happy plants in his garden. Mr. Weaver sat down under a great big tree. Jody, do you remember the story Jesus told about dirt? Mr. Weaver began. One day, a man was planting seeds. He was walking through a field and throwing a handful of seeds into the air. Some of the seeds fell where he was walking, and the birds ate them. Some fell where there were too many rocks, and they couldn't grow well. Some fell where there were weeds. But some fell in good dirt, and they grew strong. Mr. Weaver reached down and grabbed a handful of good, rich dirt. Let's pretend that my garden is you, Jody. God wants your life to grow beautiful things. Things like love and happiness. Good things like friendship and honesty. God wants them to grow. We help God by making our lives good places to grow things. God helps us do that. What about the worms? Jody asked with a laugh. Mr. Weaver began to laugh and shake all over. No, Jody. Worms are only for real gardens. And that's the story. I hope you enjoyed it. Well, I hope you enjoyed the story that I read to you this week. And the reason I picked it is because I love to garden. I can't do it too well in an apartment in the city, but I have some plants out on my fire escape and on my windowsill. And I know firsthand that the most important thing to having good, strong plants grow is the dirt. And for gardeners, you almost need layers of certain types of dirt, and it has to be just good enough for the seeds to take root and to feel safe enough to start growing the roots down and then growing up. And that's when you see the beautiful green plants that we have all over. And I really like the comparison, the metaphor that Mr. Weaver makes, saying that that's what God wants for us. We need to be good soil so that all of these beautiful characteristics, attributes, gifts can flourish. If we are in places or spaces or mindsets even that make us feel anxious or yucky, angry or sad all the time, that's not going to make good soil for good things like joy and love to grow, right? And this past year, it has been really hard to find that good space, that good soil for us to grow those beautiful God gifts that we have. So this week, what I want you to think about is how can you find places and spaces where you can be in better soil, that you can be happier, feel a little calmer? What are things that you can do for yourself? Sometimes meditation helps. Sometimes just going for a walk or sitting still and watching the birds, taking a moment to center yourself. Those are all little things that we can do to help us, to help our soil stay good and rich and open so that God's gifts of being kind and loving and forgiving, they can grow up and through us. It helps us to be kinder and more gracious with people when we are in a good space, when we have good soil. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Well, I hope you have a wonderful week, that you see some of those plants around you that will soon, in the next couple of months, start growing green buds as spring comes around. And you'll think there's good soil there, and I am good soil too. Be safe and be well.